Zoom.
Yeah, right.
Zoom.
Right.
But Jeff's out here nicely, but not on Zoom. Sorry.
Not on Zoom, okay? All right, so thank you very much. I am not a public speaker, and I am not a politician. I'm basically an economist, so you'll have to forgive me for that. I'm not an academic. I've worked for more than 30 years as a political economist for USAID in more than 45 countries around the world with long and short-term postings. In other words, it's been my honor to represent the United States, the American people, as was the slogan of USAID, in what President Trump calls S-hole countries. Sorry, I just can't say it. And I actually don't think that we should mimic him in terms of his profound profanity and immorality in addressing the nation. A number of these countries, in fact, all of these countries, I've come to know and cherish the places and people. In January of 2025, I was working as a chief of party in the Dominican Republic on the border with Haiti in a USAID project dedicated to the management and mitigation of local conflicts. And we received the notice, the executive order from USAID that what we were doing and what USAID was doing was against the foreign policy interests of the United States. So since USAID was effectively gutted in 2025, the words of the South Africa singer TQ, "You solely poisoned my soul," have come to mean to me on steroids what USAID did to USAID, what Trump did to USAID, and continues doing to the United States government, United States economy, and our friends and allies across the globe. I guess we can move to the next slide. This shows it. If you look, so you have to forgive an economist. We start with charts. It looks like the K economy. The K economy, of course, is how the rich are spending more and more, and the rest of us are getting by spending less and less. It's not. This is President Trump's ask for the coming fiscal year in terms of discretionary spending. 20%, more than 20% spending is the gigantic increase in spending of the Department of Defense, and everything else plummets. Next chart. This shows the percentage of the federal budget represented by Donald Trump's request for the Department of Defense as compared with what the USAID used to be as a percentage of the federal budget, less than 1/2%. I would note here that Vladimir Putin was very happy when USAID was killed. One of the first things, I worked in all across Russia and also in the republics of the former Soviet Union. One of the first things he did when he came to power, I wasn't there when he was there, but when he came to power, was to get rid of USAID as a subversive element to the Russia that he wanted to create. Next slide. So soft power. We know the history. USAID was created by President Kennedy. It's a successor to the Marshall Plan. The concept is uniquely American, to invest in the human dignity and the innovation of the countries that are devastated, in the case of the Marshall Plan by World War II, but it was extended across the globe. That's soft power. It's not just humanitarian aid, although those are the horror stories that you see on television now, having to do with the horrid treatment of persons who had relied on PEPFAR, which was designed to support persons suffering from HIV/AIDS. And a person suffering from all sorts of starvation, deprivation. USAID, but in addition to that, USAID assistance was based on the concept that we actually, as American people, had solved a number of the problems that block peace and prosperity through liberal democracy and enlightened governance, through human rights and constitutional rights, and the rule of law. All of these things are under attack by Donald Trump and his cronies. Next slide, please. So if you go through the list of things here that USAID supported in support of human dignity and innovation, these are the things that made America great. These are the things we projected across the world. These are the things, every single one of them, that is under attack by President Donald Trump and his cronies. It was also true that by adherence to these principles, these things that we discovered over time through trial and error as the American people to be successful in producing peace and prosperity, we were able to generate after World War II the greatest period of economic growth, not only in the United States, but globally, that has ever been seen. The next slide, please. In contrast, this is Trump's soft power. Immigrant deportations with exemptions if you pony up to his family and his cronies. Unstable and unaffordable tariffs with exemptions if you pony up to his family and his cronies. Sanctions exemptions, for example, for the Russians. Contraband and reparations. Reparations has been reintroduced by Donald Trump as a legitimate outcome of war. What we learned in the Marshall Plan after World War I is that reparations can create societies that are extremely unstable and prone to fascism. Presidential favors, such as controlling multinational company mergers and acquisitions. Presidential pardons, such as for the convicted Honduran president drug narco trafficker. Presidential emoluments, gifts like replacement of Air Force One, but also he's open for business with the crypto account, the meme coin, the peace board, and his family members and cronies going overseas to negotiate ceasefires in Iran. Meanwhile, they're also negotiating and receiving emoluments. Emoluments are specifically prohibited under the Constitution for a very specific reason. It's that the personal interests of a president can conflict with the national interests of the country.